Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Get the Fork Out. This week we have Efrem Leigh on the podcast to talk about specifically the ship's cook certificate and whether you need it or not. This is a one-stop shop for information on what you need and different scenarios, because we're not all from the same country. We don't all work for the same flag state, so we have different kind of setups. We go over that. And this is for the community. This is to make it easier for you to navigate, to have some information to maybe push back against a captain that says you need it or a management company that says you need it, and also information for captains and management to realize that not every crew member needs to take the course and the certification. You definitely don't, especially if you're Cayman flag. I hope you enjoy this episode of Get the Fork Out. Get the fork out. Everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Get the Fork Out. I'm very excited to share with you my guest today, Efrem Leigh. He's been a consultant for yachtchefs.com since 2006. He has been, he'll get into his story, but basically he's been a kind of a champion for chefs and helped steer me through parts of my career and in terms of yacht chef jobs, but also the ship's cook certificate. And that is what we're going to hit on today. Efrem, welcome.
Hey, hi, how are you doing? Glad to be here.
Excellent. I'm happy to have you.
Thanks, man. It's been a while, but we finally got together.
Yes. And where are you?
I'm in Antibes, just on the outskirts, and this is where I've been based for 8 years.
Excellent. I am in Barcelona, and Zoom makes this so much easier. How did you find the yachting industry? Tell us your yachty story.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, in '91, I was in London working a city job, and me and my sister decided to quit our jobs and come down to the south of France and try a hand on getting jobs on yachts. So I came down here and I ended up living on a campsite in Yacht, day working.
Nice.
And then I got a job on a big motor yacht as a steward. And then I spent the summer on that, and then it went to the shipyard, so I was let go because they didn't need me. And then I got onto sailing yachts in the Caribbean, and then that was the beginning of it all. And
then how long did you stay a crew member for?
On and off between 91 and 96. So yeah, because I was doing ski resort work as well in the winters, and then summers on the yachts, and then a couple of winter seasons, a couple of crossings on sailing yachts. So I worked both sailing yachts and motor yachts, and I had a great time. Just wanted to always come back to living on Antibes. So in 2014, I came back down here and opened up a French company, and started doing agency work on the chef side.
Excellent. I think you stating kind of your longevity in the industry that adds a very valuable perspective the context of what we're going to get to later.
Yeah, I also think the fact that I spent a year recruiting in London for 5-star hotels and fine dining restaurants, everything from GM to chefs to front of the house, that gave me another perspective on recruitment. And I'm a sort of an old fart doing the recruitment the way I learned back then. And I applied to the chef world on super yachts, and I love working with chefs. And obviously I've cooked in kitchens and run hotels and done the recruitment. So I think I offer my clients and the chefs a bit of a perspective from all that experience. So yeah, I try to offer a professional but personal relationship with all my clients and chefs.
And that's how we got to know each other. I think probably we met on the dock in Antibes and carried on from there years ago, maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah. You were laughing at the way I gave you a lift on the back of my scooter, and I almost crashed. But there we go. I still haven't passed my test, by the way.
Oh, there's nothing better than putting a giant person on the back of your scooter when you're a little bit unstable.
Exactly.
Yeah,
especially if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, no,
perfect. What could go wrong? Oh, good times, my man. Well, I mean, I've noticed as well. Like I'm not always in Antibes, and that you're always kind of pioneering the cause of the chefs. Like you've got a couple popular Facebook pages and a website for just kind of passing information to chefs so they can stay up to date. Why do you think that you put that kind of time and effort into setting up these resources for chefs?
Well, I'm a bit different than a normal recruiter in that I believe a recruitment consultant should go the whole journey with the chef and represent the chef equally as the client. So I've always believed in offering information to chefs about, how to get into yachting. I've always spent time with new entrants to the industry, helping them, pointing them in the right direction. Whether they want to listen to it is another thing. But I've always said that, a recruitment agent should assist a chef along the whole of their journey from when they first join the industry all the way through, and be available to help them with advice, CV help, all this kind of stuff. So I basically built and advised yacht chefs on their current website, which we launched last year. And there's a whole career advice section on there covering all elements of working in yachting. And one of those elements is the ship's cook certificate, which we'll come to. And so I built a dedicated information resource online with all the latest information that I get from chefs from all the flag states. And so, yeah, I just try and offer free advice rather than, just chasing the last dollar, which a lot of recruitment agencies do. So I'm a bit slightly different to most people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A lot of recruitment agents would never, well, I can't think of any that have spent the kind of resources, and I could be wrong. I'm sure there's one or two, but you've always stuck out and you've always taken part in public Facebook debates and just kind of clarifying things for people, which is...
Yeah, I don't really represent anyone. I have try and post an unbiased view. And I suppose you could think of me like an uncle or a granddad in the background, always there to help people. I've helped people with personal issues, ship's cook, food hygiene, all this kind of stuff, and the contracts, injuries at work, getting medical cover, making sure your contract's correct, that that you've got medical cover, what the emergency numbers are. I mean, I've had some horrific examples in my recruitment years of chefs who've been injured on yachts and not got the help from their management company, from the captain, contracts which people might not realize that if they're South African or American, they don't get healthcare cover because it's hidden away in the depths of the contract. So yeah, I'm just sort of trying to champion chefs. I've worked on yachts, I've cooked and I've managed hotels. So I'm from hospitality. I love hospitality. I love working with chefs. So I just want to help people. So it sounds corny and cliche, but I'll go for a beer with chefs. Not too late at night these days. But yeah, I'm here to provide professional service, but also an informal resource to help people in their careers.
Yeah, and I've, like I said before, that's really in essence why I wanted to have you on board on the podcast, because there's still a lot of chefs that ping up, mostly on the WhatsApp group that I'm a part of, and the same questions. I mean, it's the same questions year in after year. And what I've noticed is chefs getting used to the course, and I'm just like, whoa. If you all buy into this, then as a collective, we're screwed. So that's really why I wanted to have you on this podcast, so we can talk about, get to the nitty gritty of what you know about the ship's cook, and then maybe some of the greenies in the industry or people that are still struggling with, do I need to do it or not, can at least listen to the podcast while they cook and get some real information without having to read through lengthy articles or whatnot. So again, thanks for being on. This is going to be helpful, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to help. And I'm not a guru. I just speak to the MCA and the other flag states, and all I do is I just post what they tell me. And if there's an update, I'll share it with the community through the website, shipscookcertificate.com. And I mean, the information that I share is just what I've been given. So I don't have a biased opinion. I have an opinion myself. But yeah, I mean, it is really confusing. And every week, all year round, I'm the same. I get questions from chefs about the ship's cook, and it is confusing. I mean, at the end of the day, the ship's cook certificate was created years ago in shipping the International Labour Conference, the ILC, adopted a convention for the maritime industry, and that's called the MLC 2006. And basically, it protects the rights of seafarers, the employees on ships, and the yachting industry adheres to that. If they're a state that's ratified, if they're a flag that's ratified the MLC, then they adhere to that. So when you hear about a ship's cook on a yacht, what they're talking about is someone being qualified to cater for the religious and dietary requirements of the crew. That's all it is. It's related to looking after the crew under maritime labour law, looking after them. That's all it is. So it's an assessment to see if a ship's cook can cater for the crew. So that's essentially what it is. So it gets confusing because some people think, oh, it's a course, but it's not. It's the Marine Cookery Assessment, which is the assessment. So if you are a flag state which requires a chef to do the assessment, for example, the UK MCA, they don't count your chef qualifications. So if you're a chef from Australia with your professional cookery TAFE 3 level exam, the MCA say, well, we don't accept that as prior accreditation is what it's called. So other flag states like the Cayman Islands and the Isle of Man, they will say, well, okay, our view on ship's cooks is if you are a qualified chef and have professional experience and you have a level 3 food hygiene certificate, you can write off to the Cayman Islands directly and get what they call a recognition letter. So you don't actually have to have a ship's cook certificate. So it's really confusing because every flag state is different and every country is different. So my advice to chefs is this: don't listen to what anyone tells you. First of all, if you're a chef from Ireland, contact the Irish Maritime Association. If you're an Aussie, the Australian. If you're Dutch, the Dutch Maritime, etc., and ask them what their rules are on ship's cooks. Now, they might accept your training and qualifications in regards to issuing a ship's cook from their country. So my first advice is always go to the home nation where you're from and ask them about the ship's cook. Because a lot of Dutch chefs, for example, write to the Dutch Maritime and then they get a Dutch ship's cook without doing anything. So
excellent.
That's, people don't realize this, you don't have to do an assessment. If you want to work on a UK flagged vessel, then unfortunately the UK only accept marine cookery assessments done by the 4 centres in the UK, which is in London, in Glasgow, in Aberdeen, and in Newcastle. So the current list of approved UK MCA centres is on the Ship's Cook Certificate website. There are 2 other centres, one in Antibes and one in Fort Lauderdale, which will do a marine cookery assessment for the Cayman Islands. And I think the Marshall Islands accept them, and I think Malta also will accept that assessment.
Efrem, can I interrupt you for a second? I got a couple of questions before we get too far past them. So,
sure.
So for my example, as an American, I just sent my chef qualifications to the Cayman Islands, came back fine, sweet. But say I was an Aussie or a gentleman from Ireland,
yes,
and I sent to whatever kind of marine qualification that was in said country. Would that work on a Cayman flag vessel?
Yeah, as long as
it wouldn't work on a UK flag vessel.
No, the UK is the only ones which are UK issued. As far as I'm aware, that's how it works with the UK flags. They don't accept, for example, if you invested in a Cayman Island assessment and you did the 2.5-day assessment through someone who's offering that, and then you tried to get the UK ship's cook, at the moment, because those other centres outside the UK aren't approved, you wouldn't get the ship's cook. You would only have the letter from that country, so the Caymans. You would only have a Cayman flagged ability to work on Cayman vessels. So
okay,
it's really confusing, because
it's so confusing.
Every flag's different. Yeah, the Isle of Man is different to what the Caymans want, to what Malta wants, to what St. Vincent and the Grenadines is different.
And you have a lot of crew from all over the world trying to figure out how to navigate this very confusing thing. And as they progress in their career and jump onto different flags, and I think that leads into two more questions for you, then they have to kind of like reassess. What percentage of boats would you say are Cayman flagged? And you might not know. I don't know.
I don't know, to be honest, but I know it's a good percentage. I mean, I'm assuming there's more Cayman than British flag. I would
Definitely,
have thought.
I would say.
In super yachts, I'm talking, not shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, it is confusing because if you want to do the assessment in MCA approved centre, it is ranging from, I think, about 700 to £1,200, something like that.
It's not cheap.
No. But you might not, as I'm saying to you and to chefs, is you might not have to do it. So the big thing is the Cayman is the biggest question I always get is do the Cayman accept UK, or does the UK accept Cayman ship's cook? And at the moment, no. If you're on the UK flagged and you have the Cayman, like your recognition letter, the MCA wouldn't accept it. But I guess also it just depends if you have an audit by the flag state from someone from the Caymans come on your yacht. If you're on a Cayman flag, it depends on that person. If they just see that you have a ship's cook, then maybe they're not interested on that day where it's from.
Right.
So it's also that. It's
the risk.
It's like food hygiene, food safety. Cayman flagged vessels actually want a level 3 food hygiene. They want a level 2 chef qualification and a level 3 food safety.
I think the food safety is incredible. I mean, I think every crew member, because pretty much every crew member, maybe apart from the engineers, are involved in food to some capacity or another. And the kind of the numbers change every year as science changes, and I think that's great. And I really think food hygiene is a certification that is definitely needed. And I have nothing against the kind of the food hygiene, but let's dig into so 2006 when the MLC came out. That's where ship's cook came into effect.
But it was actually only adopted in 2013. I think it was August 2013. So that's when it started. And that's when I think 2013-14, when the super yachts or the yachting industry realized they weren't adhering to commercial practices. So I'm talking from the UK MCA, this was. So a company in Antibes approached the UK MCA and said, we will run an assessment. Initially, they said it's going to be like a week or so. And then they got it down to 2.5 days. So this assessment is basically, it harps back to commercial ships. Now, in commercial ships, and I actually know a super yacht chef who's still working in the industry today, and he did the original ship's cook. So originally, the ship's cook on big ships was, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks, level 1, and then you'd go and do 6 months or a year's work experience on a ship as a cooking, and then you did your level 2. So originally, and in big ships, it was like your apprenticeship. You learned the French basic classic techniques, which is what the assessment was about, and then you got your ship's cook certificate. So as I say, I know one person in yachting who did that.
We know the same guy.
yeah, exactly. I think he's in Antibes at the moment, actually, on a yacht. But so the super yacht industry sort of negotiated, as far as I think I can work out, with the MCA that they would do an assessment for a ship's cook on commercial ships, basically ships that go more than 60 miles offshore and with more than 10 crew. That's the sort of remit. Now,
and that's the rumor mill as well, whether these entities in Antibes went to the MCA and kind of resurfaced this thing that was very dormant.
No, it didn't exist. It didn't exist. So people didn't realize super yachts, yachting. When I worked on yachts, we had no STCW or ENG1, in the 90s. And so obviously it's becoming more professional and more qualification driven. Which, whether it's good or not, I don't know. I mean, but basically, the industry's evolved, and you need these certificates to progress in the yachting. Now, the ship's cook, at the end of the day, it's only qualifying a chef's ability to cater for the religious and dietary requirements of the crew, as well as understanding about marine pollution and this kind of stuff, costing and some other thing.
But as I've heard from the course, that's not really what it does. And I want to point something out, just an observation, as like, because I've had, you know, 2 significant careers, both on land and then in yachting.
Yeah.
There's no such qualification in the restaurant industry. It's just learn how to read a resume. And and as a professional chef, to at a relatively high level on land, at high level restaurants, to come in and have to be kind of certified through a maritime industry. I'm like, I don't understand the connection here. I do agree that there should be some sort of kind of barrier to prevent people that maybe shouldn't have that job coming in the industry, but I don't think setting up some sort of like financial goalkeeper is the way to help people, maybe not from the West, maybe from countries from the East that don't have sort of the finances to fund this. And I'm going to use it again, like kind of like goaltender of the industry, because I don't think it serves a purpose that it's set out for. I think it's to make money, because this is a course-driven industry. And the more money you can get from yachties, the more money you get from your chef community, the better for some people.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying, but it is also, at the end of the day, it's an assessment. So it's not a course, it's an assessment. So you're not actually, some chefs say they go on it and they learn. Other chefs say that it's exactly what they did in their training. So I think it should more be focused on people who have no professional chef experience or training, rather than everyone. But then,
because I can spend £1,200 in a much better way to learn something about food, rather than going to some, you know, place on TV to get tested.
Yeah, what might have been better is for them to have assessors, but who would have paid for it is my little add-on, is see if they had an assessor. So if each flag state has someone who will turn up on your yacht and spend the day with you, and if you follow all the correct food safety procedures and your galley's clean and all your stock rotation and all that stuff is done properly, then you get a certificate at the end of it saying that that Brennan has passed his ship's cook assessment.
That's a great idea.
But who would pay for that? So who pays for the assessors? I mean, the super yacht industry is $1 billion, €1 billion industry, $1 trillion, whatever, 6-star, 7-star, whatever the people talk about. But
but couldn't it fit into a flag state audit? I mean, who pays for those?
Yeah, but they will never go back now. I can't see them ever changing it.
Yeah,
because it's basically, as I said, under the Maritime Labour Convention, it's the duty of the flag states and the yacht, who comes under that flag state's control, to ensure that the crew on a ship or yacht are fed correctly and they work the right hours and all this kind of stuff. So hours of rest and blah, blah, blah. So, they were only trying to adhere to the MLC, but I think it's got a bit confused. The fact that you can only...
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And just because you pass your assessment in marine cookery, the 2.5-day assessment, or 2 days, but everyone's different. Like I know Ontier in Aberdeen, from what I understand, is just a 1-day assessment, whereas Leith's is 2. Whereas if you go to the Cayman ones in Florida or Ontario, it's 2.5. So it's like no one's singing from the same hymn book anyway, and that's the problem with yachting. Every flag state has its own rules. Like Isle of Man say, if it's more than 6 crew, if you're a professional chef or if you've got professional chef qualifications or chef experience, then they'll accept that. The Cayman will accept your chef qualifications from wherever they are in the world, as long as you can prove you've got a qualification, and then you get the recognition letter. So everyone's different. So this is the trouble with yachting. It's like employment contracts. Everyone's got their own rules,
right?
And no one's accountable. And as you said, it's a lot of money to invest if you want to step up and work on yachts with more than 10 crew, and then you're getting someone saying to you, the captain, the crew agent, management company, you can only get the job if you've got the ship's cook certificate. Well, actually, that's bullshit, because some yachts, I've even told the chef, tell your captain to look at this. For example, the Cayman Islands. And like even this week, I've had 2 people send off to the Caymans because they needed it. For example, on a Malta flagged yacht, I know that chefs have applied for the recognition letter from the Caymans and used it on the Malta, and not had any issues. So, the whole it's a mess.
It's a mess. And that's really why I wanted to have you on, to give people a resource to dodge the bullshit, because there's a lot out there. And resources also for captains and management, because they're also getting hoodwinked to a certain extent. And they just get told something by the people that provide the assessment in the course that it's necessary and you have to do it. And it's clearly not the truth. So I just want to get all the facts out there in like an audio video form, so people don't have to pile through wrong.
It's a great idea. And I know you have good following. And so word will spread. And it's something that, with the info that I offer people is trying to explain it to them that it all depends on your flag state, and it all depends if you have a chef qualification, it's easier to get your recognition from the Cayman. If you don't, then you'd have to do the assessment. Because they say that they've got no proof. So if you've got a physical qualification, you can say, well, I've done the training, and that's all they want to know. Because at the end of the day, you're only cooking for crew.
Right.
You're not cooking for guests. It's not a stamp of your ability to cater for the guests, because at the end of the guest day, the guests want such a wide array of cuisine on the yacht. Some formal, informal, so it's not a judgment on your ability to cater as a chef for the guests. It's only for the crew, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and I kind of get the need. You can see the need where you wouldn't want someone joining a boat that had no idea about sanitation or had no idea about cooking. They just kind of blagged their way into it. I just don't think this is the right way to keep those people out, because I think it's a severe disadvantage to certain nationalities in this industry that are well deserving to have amazing roles in this industry, yet a $2,000 entry fee on top of all the STCW and ENG1. And another disturbing fact is, like, and I see this in the chef group where chefs are like, oh, well, the deckies and the engineers have to take courses. So it's like, no, don't just buy into it because other departments have to take courses. Like, I went to culinary school and I was able to get away with not having a ship's cook certificate for a while because certain flag states will just take that without even giving you an accreditation or whatever certificate they have from Cayman. It's like, oh, you went to culinary school, it's fine. So we're not judging the quality of chefs here. It's just a strange way to meet a requirement that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and that's what I love about yachting, is you touched on the nationalities from all around the world. And and when I look at the stats on who I work with on the agency side of what I do, I'm working with 25, 26 different nationalities around the world in total, from Asia to Europe to America to South America. And I love the diversity, because food is all about cooking and passion. If you've got that, doesn't matter if you've got a formal training, Michelin-starred background, or whether you're cooking in an old people's home. If you're passionate about feeding people and using fresh, good quality ingredients, whether it's crew or guests, that's what counts for a chef.
Agreed.
So you're right. Guys and girls from less wealthy environments to have to spend, as you say, about $2,000 once it comes to. It's probably more when you include flights, all that stuff. So it's an expensive investment. But maybe what the industry should have looked at is this assessor thing, and also maybe just said that any chef on 24 meters or above has to have a level 3 food hygiene. So
that's massive.
You can do that. There's one MCA. It depends. Food hygiene is another subject. Like, is it a UK MCA approved food hygiene course you're going to do, or is it an American, food safe course? Or
that is hard.
So I mean, it depends. But a level 3 UK MCA approved course, there is one. The Chartered Institute of Environmental Health is on their list as approved, and you can do an online, because of COVID, level 3 for £150, which is about 9 hours. So I think it would have been better if they'd looked at food safety as
First,
a
yeah,
guide.
agreed.
But
It's more important.
as I said, yeah, it is confusing. There were more, and there are more assessment centres. There are in the Far East. There are, and chefs don't know whether what they're going to do is going to be accepted, and they need to before they invest.
Spend all that money.
So my advice is first go to the country where you're from, the maritime organization. Always contact me and say, look, I'm from, I don't know, Denmark. What help? I'm from Indonesia. What help can I? And I'll try and help you online as far as I can. And then I'll share it with the community on the website. But it is confusing. And the annoying thing was that certain parties offered an assessment and then didn't help the chefs after it. For example, some of them did an assessment in France, but didn't send off their certificate for the marine cookery assessment to the MCA. So they never actually received the ship's cook, but they thought that the assessment certificate was the ship's cook, but it's not. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So
just be really careful out there, chefs. It's not easy to navigate, and a lot of it's bullshit, and a lot of it's not in your favor, and it's not there to help you. And it hasn't been around long enough to be set up properly where it's just like, oh, here's the natural path. It's just like the wild west of people trying to scam money off of you. So just be careful.
I mean, at the end of the day, the MCA in the UK, back in 2014, 15, they did accept what's called prior accreditation. So the department at the UK MCA, the Seafarers Department, were looking at the chefs who applied for the ship's cook. That's what I'm saying. They applied. You didn't have to do the assessment. And if you had covered the course, so the syllabus is basically French, Old English, classic cookery, 706, 1 and 2. So if you could show the MCA that you had this qualification, that you'd covered it when you trained, then they issued ship's cook certificates. But then suddenly they stopped. Why? Who knows? It's another subject, another discussion for another day.
We can go into it if you want. We both know how it happened.
I won't get into that. But basically, I think all flag states should recognise chef training, and all of them do, apart from the MCA, who want you to complete the marine cookery assessment. I think also the resources of the UK MCA are so depleted, and people have changed, that if a chef from, Hungary sends in a certified translated copy of their chef diploma to the UK, how are the UK going to verify it? So I think that's why they shut their doors, because they were overwhelmed with people applying from overseas. So they said, well, we're only going to deal with English qualification, English issued chef qualification, as in Great Britain. And I'm saying English. I mean that.
Well, thankfully, none of the other flag states followed suit, because we'd be in a pickle otherwise. That's not fair. Just because, it's a British ensign on the flag doesn't mean that people that don't read or write or speak English can't still progress in their lives and career and do whatever they want to do.
Exactly. I mean, I know chefs who sat the assessment in France for the company that doesn't do it anymore. And they were Italian, for example, and they struggled with English, and they got pulled up because their pastry was made differently to the way the assessor wanted to do it. So at the end of the day, it's like, I think people have lost sight of actually what it is. The ship's cook certificate is all it is. As I've said all the way through this discussion, it's just rubber stamping a chef's ability to cater for the religious and dietary requirements of the crew under maritime law. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great, Efrem. I'm glad you hit that point home a few times, because that is the base. That's the essence of what this thing started as. And what it's become now is completely different. And what it's become now is something that I don't think anyone really needs. So I love that you kind of came with a solution where there's some sort of assessment on board. Who pays for it? I don't know, but I'm sure most chefs would be happy to pay for it if they had to, rather than have to do this assessment. And maybe it's part of an audit.
Yeah.
If it's that important, put it in an audit.
Yeah, I mean, there was something similar to this set up a couple of years ago where there was this sort of the yacht would have a gold standard rubber stamp, but that's not the same thing. I'm talking about purely for the galley having when the audit happens, the inspector spends time with the chef, sees their working practices, sees their, and they can turn up unannounced.
Yeah.
As well. Like they do on land. I mean, in England,
exactly.
Around pubs and hotels, we'd get the health inspector turn up. The local council guy would turn up unannounced, and you have to keep all your fridge logs and your freezer logs, and all your stores in good order, and it's basic practice. But in yachting, I hear so many stories about there's vast majority of chefs have pride in what they do, but there's certain yachts where a chef might have been unable to cope or doesn't have the right working practices, and chefs go in to take over from another chef, and it's a shit show. So I mean,
I think you hit on an important point though. Like, we're trying to reinvent the wheel here. Meanwhile, the restaurant industry is kind of unilaterally the same in every country, where there's a sanitation inspection, and it's a surprise, and be ready and be clean. There's no ship's cook assessment of any skills in the restaurant industry, as far as I know, at least in English-speaking countries. No one comes in, or you have to present a certificate. Hey, I can cook to this level. It's like, no, I have a resume, and I've built that resume, or I've been to culinary school, I've apprenticed or whatever, and this is who I am on my resume. It's not like the restaurant guild has a certain assessment.
I think it's I understand what you're saying, but I think with shipping, it's under maritime labor law. They just need to somehow qualify and rubber stamp that a ship's cook is able and capable. And it's kind of not been a major talking point, I don't think. And it's changed. And the fact that if you want to, everyone used to say, well, the UKMCA is the leader in what's what, in terms of food hygiene. If you do a food hygiene certificate, are you going to go from the recognized list? Are you going to do your ENG1 from the recognized approved doctors list? It's all this, but I just think it's a global industry, and people are involved in cooking on yachts from all over the world in different languages, and I just think maybe it could have been done better, and a simpler solution, rather than having a chef who's already done 3-4 years training and done certification, got their chef's diploma or qualification, whatever it is, and then having to spend another $2,000, $2.5 rubber stamping what they've already done. Don't get me wrong, some chefs, and you'll get people looking at this video who will say, well, bullshit, I did the assessment and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I brushed back up on pastry and whatever. Fantastic. But that's fine. Everyone's got their own views, but if you think about it, if you've already invested in your culinary training in your earlier years, why do you have to reinvest to prove that you've done something already? Whereas if you've got a bit of paper you can wave, you can say, this is my certificate. Why am I doing it again? Why do I have to prove? Rather have someone say, well, we want the food hygiene to be up to date, and that's more of an issue, I think. If you look at the figures and the fact, I mean, every crew member on a yacht, from captain to stew to laundryman, whatever, should all have, laundry person, sorry, should have a food hygiene level 2. It's because everyone's handling food. Everyone goes to the crew fridge, whether it's a small boat, big boat, whatever. I mean, so rather get that going, and all chefs have a level 3. I mean, chefs are going to be spitting daggers at me for suggesting that, but I think it's better to have standards of food safety than checking if someone can make puff pastry or I mean, crew as well are international. So you're testing a chef's abilities and knowledge of French classics, whereas the crew might be, European, Southeast Asian, North American, South American, East European, could be from Middle Eastern. So how do you gauge if a chef can cater for all those cuisines? So rather get a standard for hygiene and raise that in the industry. I'm not saying that the industry is suffering in terms of food hygiene. I'm just saying it would have been a better solution to have control of.
I think it would have made much more sense, I think, to initially maybe get that out of the way and make sure there's a high level of certification all across the industry, the crew member wide. I think that would be clearly more important, because that's the route that most restaurants have taken in any given country.
But I understand why they introduced the assessment, because they suddenly thought, oh dear, hang on, 2013-14, we're not adhering to the Maritime Labour Convention. So they hurried together a solution which they thought would be a good way to assess people. But the fact that every flag state has its own rules for that assessment, it should have, they should have agreed across all the flag states, okay, we're going to allow chefs who've already studied cookery and got a qualification to be considered as a chef's cook if they've got experience as well in kitchens, which they would have. So it's just confusing. It's not a level playing field. So
it's confusing and it's costly. And it's really unnecessary. It feels like whether it's in there or not, great. But I think, like you said, no one's really pushing back against this. It's just like slowly creeping around the industry, and things are changing, and chefs are confused. Even chefs like me that have been doing it a while. But what do the greenies feel like? It must be baffling to look down the barrel of this problem for the first time. Just be like, what the fuck do I do with this? And how much does it cost me?
Exactly. Well, I think the greenies have got enough other crap being thrown at them from companies selling them super yacht chef, new to the industry courses and all this bullshit. And that's why on the yachtchefs.com website, I built them a career advice area. So it asks questions about, are you new to yachting? What job can I go for? What about contracts? What about insurance? What about healthcare? What about the ship's cook? And so I think that's more important to help chefs with that, to let them know that they don't have to learn and spend a lot of money on a introduction to super yacht galley course, because
definitely not.
Okay, it will cover stuff which can be useful, but with social media and the online community now, why spend money where you can just talk to people on Facebook or WhatsApp
or
whatever,
freelance and just get amongst it.
So the industry is different, and I think with social media, and that's something that I advise the website yachtchefs.com about, is you've got to embrace change, and that's why they also offer free job posting to captains, because the idea is that to get more and more chefs working, and through the ship's cooks website, it offers information on that topic, but it also gives them access to jobs where captains directly post onto the jobs board. So there's a whole ream of different things that can be done to help chefs, and I don't think enough agents. I think there are some fantastic agents out there, of course, but there's also those that just are in it for the numbers, and they're 9 to 5. And for me as a consultant working with chefs, it's always been about long-term offering advice, giving it free, helping with CVs where I can, and then giving the ship's cook advice. And that's my philosophy.
No, and it's appreciated, man. And I hope I'm able to expose you and the website that you work on to more and more chefs, because I think it's quite special what you do. You put a lot of extra time into things that don't make you more money. So I really appreciate the time and effort for the yacht chef community.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I enjoy it. I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy working with chefs, and I'm always available for social gatherings as well. Not so much as in my youth, but it's important, I think, that people are given the right information and that they're not just used to make a quick buck. And I think some agents might be guilty of that. And, whether you're new to the industry or an old timer, you deserve the equal amount of time and honesty from the crew agents who represent you. One last thing I'd say to chefs as well is make sure that when you register with a crew agent, that they are data protection registered, and that you don't give all your bank information and all that to them. Make sure that they are a recognized, reputable crew agent, and that their website says HTTPS. It's a secure site. Which at the end of the day, you're loading your, I know on yachtchefs.com, you don't have to load any documents apart from your resume if you want. You don't have to load that even. But some websites, you have to download hundreds of all your certificates, your passport, this, that, and the other. And just be careful with that. That if you're loading your documents to a site that's not secure, just think anyone can get hold of those documents, and then you're being, you're someone's using, you're being compromised. So it's a small thing. If a company's not professionally enough to have a secure website, then should you be using them? That's my finishing note on that is, just chefs, be careful. Just be careful with your data that you're sharing with strangers, because at the end of the day, also with job scams, if a job looks too good to be true, it normally is. If you're a cruise chef on 10,000 a month on a time for time rotation, scratch your head and think, I don't think so. Because the job won't be real. And if I hear of any job scams, I'll post them as well. But the rule of thumb is normally if it's too good to be true, it ain't true.
Well, Efrem, let's end it on that. I know you have to go. We as the chef community appreciate you and all the extra above and beyond things that you do to help us clarify these murky waters, so to speak. But I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And as I say, shipscookcertificate.com is the website for info, and yachtchefs.com is for the jobs. And even if chefs are looking to advertise chef jobs on their yachts, yards, crossings, they can do it free on the site. There's no cost. So just want to spread the word.
All right. Thanks, Efrem. Thanks for coming on. Get the fork out. We'll see you around, man.
Yeah, I'm going to get the fork out of you. See you later.
I know you got to go. See you, man. Get the fork out.